Welcome to Education in Focus. I'm your host, Aliana Kernodle. A number of New York school districts have become the latest to join more than 500 school districts across the United States, suing the biggest social media companies for what they allege are adverse effects on students' mental health. Joining me to discuss this is Chalkboard News editor Brendan Clary. Brendan, what are the allegations behind this suit?
Yeah, so the suit is complicated in terms of the allegations that are alleged and also in terms of like who is suing, and it's like everybody is suing. So I think that's kind of the hard part. Is it depends on who's suing, where the allegations are basically the same though, I guess, but there are variations among like, you know, the different states that are suing, the different social media companies. And then there's also, you know, school districts who are suing them and personal injury complaints. So there's a lot of different allegations, but essentially it's that the social media companies like Instagram, Facebook, and, you know, the Meta company that owns both of those, TikTok, and I think that there's maybe Snapchat. There's a couple of other, Snapchat, YouTube, the big five: Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, YouTube. They have basically tried to hotwire or take over adolescents' brain activity to make their apps and to make their products essentially addictive, and to try to overwhelm and to exploit psychology and other means to try to get kids hooked on social media. That is the baseline allegation. I think that's pretty consistent through all of these, that there's a mental health crisis that is going on, that social media has grown exponentially, and that is not accidental. Those are the allegations that are made. And again, I often say this when we're talking about, you know, court cases, is that journalists use the terms allegation or allegedly to describe, you know, what people say in these kinds of cases, because again, like, this isn't a matter of fact or law or statement. This is what people are saying is going on. So whether it's a government entity or a private organization or a school district, this is what they're alleging these social media companies are doing. So that's just kind of why we use that. But essentially, you know, the core of it is that these social media companies, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, and YouTube, have exploited adolescents.
And so these are not all one suit, but they're sort of under an umbrella. Can you lay that out for us?
Yeah. So this is what's called multi-district litigation suit. And so each district has a lawsuit that it files, but it's kind of globbed onto what's like a overview complaint. So basically there is a master complaint for local governments and school districts. And they're all able to take the same basic format and say that, yeah, well, this is what we're affirming is, you know, we are a school district here. We've been affected the same way. We're filing a lawsuit in this court because of the multi-district litigation suit. So it's not a class action lawsuit. You have to file. You can't just like jump on it like you can with some, you know, class action lawsuits. But you have to say, like, this is the specific lawsuit that we're talking about. This is the specific complaint that we're referencing. So in this case, these New York school districts are a number of them, and they have the same lawyer, and so they're filed, you know, in pretty quick succession. But they're the latest to join, and they basically all they have to do is include that master complaint and then file the lawsuit. And so they don't really have to have like the 78-page or the 250-page document. I think the one for local governments and school districts is over 320 pages long. So you don't have to do sort of that kind of work to just lay out your case. You just say, like, this is the school district. This is where we're filing from. We're jumping on here. Here you go. And so then the judge has to determine, you know, whether or not they're going to look at that one as well. But that's the point of the multi-district litigation. So it's a very confusing thing. I mean, there's hundreds of these kinds of actions on the docket, which is, you know, what lists the different kinds of legal developments in the case there. So it's very confusing. There's a lot of different moving pieces, and you know, there's a lot of different back and forth. So that's like in a nutshell some of that. And again, I'm trying to wrap my head around it as well.
So what decisions has the court made on this so far?
Basically, they've been allowed. The court has allowed, and this is Judge Yvonne Gonzalez Rogers. She's allowed this to continue going, and that's a big deal, you know, because these social media companies are going to keep asking the court to shut it down and say, like, you can't allow this to keep going forward. So I think that in doing so and keeping that open, it's basically saying, you know, there's something that we need to investigate here about these claims about these school districts, and that the multi-district litigation, opening it up to, you know, different school districts and local governments around the country, allowing them to jump on there as well. I think that can be, maybe a bad sign for social media companies who are hoping to get out of this without, the continued legal battle, and potentially, try to, like, the damages, could, if it were not to go their way, the damages could be, larger given the scope of how many people are involved, how many different entities are there. And the school districts are alleging, hey, we've paid for this. That's part of the complaint, is like, basically we've been bearing the brunt of the mental health crisis, and alleging that these social media companies have caused that. So we should get some of that money back, and we're seeking damages for that. So that's part of the interesting thing there.
And how have the social media companies responded to this so far?
Yeah, so the companies, a Meta spokesperson said earlier this year that they disagree with the court's decision, and they believe that the evidence will, quote, demonstrate our commitment to supporting young people. And, they point to the tools that they've created to help, quote, support parents and teens. For example, creating things like teen accounts. So I think that they say, like, we are doing some stuff to try to mitigate this, but the court is going to have to weigh in and say, like, is that enough? Or have they kind of, in years past created social media to be addictive? And can you get away from that? So I think that's one of those things that the court's going to have to figure out.
Well, Brendan, thank you for your insights on this story. Listeners can keep up with this story and more at chalkboardnews.com.